What's up, everybody? It is Monday. Let's see, the 19th of March, 2018. I almost didn't know what day it was. And this is the Monday Morning Analyst here on MMAfighting.com. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. Now, on Saturday, I did a UFC London post-fight special. If you want to hear me and my initial reactions and go through the entire card, I'll put that up here. You can check that out right now. That's on my personal YouTube channel. But for today, we're just going to talk about the main event. Let's see, Fabricio Werdum losing to Alexander Volkov at the fourth round, getting finished with strikes. So what was the reason that Volkov won? How was he able to beat one of the most decorated UFC heavyweights of all time, basically? How is it this a guy who was out-wrestled by Czech Congo in Bellator just a few years ago is now out there, not out-wrestling Fabricio Werdum, but getting such a great win? I have a few theories. I'll share those with you now. The real lesson to me about why Alexander Volkov was able to defeat Fabricio Werdum has to deal with his grappling. Now, Fabricio Werdum, in my judgment, has always been the best heavyweight grappler. He did not look like that necessarily this time out, although he didn't look bad exactly, but it wasn't the best Fabricio Werdum I'd ever seen. However, the real credit, in my judgment, goes to Alexander Volkov. What he was basically able to do was, yes, he would get taken down, and yes, he would allow himself to get cross-faced at times. And yes, there was at least one at Kimura threat, I believe, at the end of the second or first round. But he never really let himself get too far out of position. And there's two things you want to focus in on here. Number one, not his takedown defense, but his guard retention. And I'm going to show you some footage of that to help you better understand it. That's the first part. And number two, it was his ability to nullify the deep half of Fabricio Werdum. Fabricio Werdum was trying all different kinds of things, like a Homer Simpson sweep and different back takes from the deep half. And they were not necessarily the best attempts, but you're going to see, and there's especially one sequence we're going to pay attention to, where Alexander Volkov just did a really good job of being patient. If a position got really bad or, not as good as it could have been, he didn't panic. He would lock up something, relatively neutral-ish, but also in command, like a full guard. And from deep half, for the most part, although not entirely, but for the most part, he was able to get out of it. Fabricio Werdum was doing desperation shots where he would shoot and then pull a la Demian Maia, Alexander Volkov on top of him. And that's enough to get a lot of really good guys. But Volkov, either because he just had really good balance or was prepared for it, or more than that, I think he's deceptively strong in certain grappling positions, was able to not ever let it get too far out of hand, and when he needed to do damage on the feet, he was able to. By the way, the biggest punch for him is that right hand. It's not an uppercut. It's not over the top. It's like a shovel punch that comes this way. I'm going around my own microphone here, but it's like at this angle. It's not uppercut. It's not overhand here. It's kind of like it digs that way, and he gets it right underneath the arms of somebody. It was a big win for him and a big punch that he's very, very good at. So that's the basic overview. It was finding the guard retention, never let himself get overwhelmed in deep half for the most part. And also, there's a couple of times where I'm not kidding about this. This is true. Alexander Volkov was trying back takes from De La Riva guard. We're going to look at those as well. That's pretty impressive. There was a couple of times where he was able to do this, and to pretty decent effect. In fact, he was able to get almost a sweep and stand up as a consequence of it in the very first round. So Alexander Volkov's grappling was good enough to survive, on occasion, reverse position, and just never let the fight get too far away from him. Let's look at some footage that helps us better understand those facts. So I made a collage here, or a highlight reel, of one thing first. This is all the times that Alexander Volkov was able to retain guard. Now, a couple things to note here as we'll play this over and over again so you can get a sense of it. He was switching stances a lot, Alexander Volkov. He likes to strike from the orthodox position, but that puts his left leg forward. That's the one Fabricio Werdum likes to grab onto. So a lot of times he was standing in southpaw position to defend that. You saw early in this fight and early in this round, he wasn't able to do that, so he got taken down a fair number of times. Now, a couple things here to pay attention to with the guard retention. I was surprised at the poor passing of Fabricio Werdum because when you look at the tape, it's not like Volkov is doing something fancy or that his timing is impeccable or something else, but it's very, very effective. He just is able to make it work, which leads me to believe he's probably really strong in some of these positions because, yes, you see Volkov is very tall, but that's often a liability against somebody who's really good at grappling. You'll see Neil Magny sometimes he'll stretch out, and as a consequence, guys are able to like take that position. In jiu-jitsu, a lot of it is being crunched up, elbows to knees. Your core is engaged. You're getting inside control. It's very, very limited in terms of the spacing, and it's very, very limited in terms of what you're really going to show somebody, and then how much you're going to open up. But I want you to pay attention to this highlight here. So here's what you notice on a couple of these. Number one, as I mentioned, the stance switching was a little bit there. And of course, stance switching confers other benefits in terms of the striking. But here's what I noticed. What you're going to see Werdum do a lot of times is he's going to try and take a hook with the ankle. A hook is someone's, like, let's say their shin, well, their shin really, but their knee to their ankle. And he's going to try, and he's going to step out of a guard, and he's going to try and break open the guard, and he's going to try and take that hook and stuff it underneath his legs and sit on it. Why do you want to do that? Well, if you're using a butterfly hook, the hook is not heel to ass collapsed. It's kind of open, and then the muscles are engaged, and then you're going to pull someone's weight on top of you and turn them for like a butterfly sweep or something. But you can do the opposite of that. You can sit on a hook, and then you can drive their heel right to their leg, and you can kill it. And then from there, there's all kinds of hip turning you can do to allow them to get past, right? And he keeps trying it here. You're going to see at the beginning, and he can't ever really get it. He keeps trying to shove it through, and Volkov is still able to get his guard out to the side. That's, for a tall guy like he is, I got to tell you, folks, that is very, very hard to do and very, very impressive. A lot of guys like this don't have the core strength or like the hip flexor strength to get their legs to move in that kind of a way. And look, being in full guard, not necessarily the best position if you don't have much of a guard, but at least it's pretty safe. Now, something else you're going to notice with this is you see him try to grab that and sit on the hook, failing at it almost constantly. Another thing you're going to see is Fabricio Werdum. For folks who may not know this, it's very, very hard. It can be done. It's possible. In fact, what's funny is that Werdum has some of the best passing on your knees. But basically, passing on your knees is really hard to do. For the most part, including at very high levels, if you want to pass, you have to stand. And you see him do this here a couple of times. He tries to stand, and once he stands, and you see Volkov follow him, that's when he's usually able to break the guard. And there you see him try and grab the ankle, stuff it between his legs, and failing for the most part. What is interesting is you're going to see Volkov do it. They called it a tripod sweep on the broadcast. It's not. A De La Riva hook is, if I'm facing you, I can grab the ankle or I can underhook the ankle like this, and then I'm going to use my leg and I'm going to wrap it around yours. My left leg will go around your right leg. I'm on my back, you're standing or something. Although you can do De La Riva when somebody is sitting. It's called the De La Riva guard for the black belt, Ricardo De La Riva, who gave Nogueira his black belt. And De La Riva has been advanced far past what De La Riva himself was able to do, and now there's De La Riva or inside De La Riva or reverse De La Riva. It's a very, very powerful guard that has been popularized in modern jiu-jitsu. In any case, you see him do that De La Riva guard, and if you notice it when you watch him do it, what he does is, and I believe it's at the one, let me look at my notes here. It happens at the, pardon me folks, it happens at the, I have the exact time frame here. It happens at 1:39 of the first round, so pay attention to that as you watch that here. He actually, rather than just taking and wrapping around the leg, he takes it and wraps it around the leg and then goes to the opposite hip. That is a dead giveaway. You're trying to take somebody's back. The Miao brothers are famous for it. If you can do that, then you can create space for the other leg to come in. You take them out of the back of the knees and you pull them back, especially if they have a gi, you can grab the belt. It's a famous, famous back take. And you see Werdum tries to get out of it and get away from it. And then as a consequence, Volkov is able to stand. So the two big takeaways from the footage you're looking at now is, number one, the guard retention. Not easy to do, especially for a long guy and having those kinds of muscles worked. Never letting his hook get stuffed between the legs of Fabricio Werdum. And he was able to use a De La Riva hook on the outside all the way through to the opposite hip, right, to the other leg's hip as a potential back take. Fabricio Werdum read it and got away from it, but it enabled Volkov to stand. That's pretty impressive, folks. Not a lot of big guys in MMA can do stuff like that. Very, very hard, very, very impressive, especially against a world champion, both in the gi and without the gi in jiu-jitsu, Fabricio Werdum. The other part of this was deep half. Deep half was something that has been successful for Fabricio Werdum. He did it in the Antonio Silva fight. He did it in the Nogueira fight. There's a lot of things you can do from deep half. You can sweep. You can take the back. You can set up Kimuras. You can actually set up arm bars. There's a lot of different stuff you can do from deep half if you're good at it. Not a lot of people are. Some of the keys to deep half. You're going to start on one hip and you're going to roll all the way to your other. You're going to watch Fabricio Werdum do that. Number two, you want to get up underneath somebody. right? In jiu-jitsu, I want to be on top of you, but I don't want to have you have the ability to control my weight, but I want to maybe smash you in certain ways, especially, of course, if I've passed or if I'm in half guard or something, controlling the head and the hips. But if I'm not doing that and I'm getting underneath you for a guard, I got to get underneath you. There's a very famous video with Eddie Bravo and Marcelo Garcia rolling, and they're just, having fun. It's not a very competitive roll. It's a fun roll. It's a really cool roll, though. And you see Eddie Bravo talk about the fact afterwards, and this is a guy who's doing all his 10th Planet stuff. He was saying that Marcelo just wouldn't let Eddie get up underneath him.
What's it like when you guys roll together?
Man, I couldn't do shit. That guy's a fucking monster. I couldn't do shit. He wouldn't let me get under him. I thought that in the beginning I could probably get an electric chair. I thought I could. I thought most black belts that I roll with that have never rolled with me, it's always the electric chair that gets them first, if I get him at all. So that was the game plan. I just could not get under him. His hips are so strong. He was sprawling so hard.
Because once you get somebody really underneath them, you can just off balance them, you can carry their weight, and you can turn and block, and you can do a whole lot more. Deep half, to really make it work like most sweeps, you got to get up under there. And what you're going to see Volkov do is, a couple times he gets caught here a little bit, but he's able to regard. Or what you're going to see him do is, you're going to see him crunch Fabricio Werdum together, because if I really crunch your body, you can't turn it the way you need to. Also, Werdum is going to want to bring his knee and the knee of Volkov and the leg of Volkov. He's going to want to bring them together. Volkov is pretty good about bringing them apart. Volkov is pretty good about stopping the body of rolling from Fabricio Werdum. You're going to go through this. Let's take a look at it now, and I'll walk you through it here just a little bit. So you're going to see him. He shoots that same leg, the left leg. He's going to pull up underneath. He wants to have his head in between. What you're going to see Volkov do is he's going to sit, for the most part, when this is successful, to the outside. Now, this one, he gets turned. But here's what I like about this. Werdum passes, but he rolls to his base and then stands. Now watch it again. He's going to do deep half, right? And he's going to come up on top, Homer Simpson style. And we'll talk about why this didn't work in a minute, but it doesn't work. Here's another one. Watch. He shoots the same leg. You guys noticed that before? He's going to come up underneath. He has to get underneath him like this, right? And now he takes the back, okay? We'll go through these in just a second. One more. All right? And, of course, Volkov is able to turn into him because he times the armbar perfectly. And then one more here, I believe. He pulls it in. Watch this sequence. This is a brilliant sequence. We're going to look at it in slow motion in just a second. What's the key there? You're going to see it's the hands of Volkov that stop everything. But let this play through, right? There he goes. And he's controlling him a little bit, squishing him. When you squish someone like that, they can't really do a whole lot with it. All right. So there you go. These are, and then he rolls on top. Okay, and then from here he gets up and then he knocks him out. So what do we learn about this? Is we're going to go through in just a second even more. You're going to see a couple of things, and I'll go and show you that last sequence here in just a second because that really told the whole story. But what you're going to see from him is Werdum does a good job for the most part of getting underneath, but he has to have his head between the legs and the hips of Volkov. Volkov is able to keep a wide base. That's better because Werdum wants to get underneath and then bring it together. He was not necessarily all that able to, except for the very first one. The second thing to consider here when you're watching this is if you have deep half, if I'm controlling that leg, so Werdum likes to go for that left leg and pull it on top of him and then roll underneath, two things you have to look out for. I have to use my own hook to elevate your leg to really off-balance him. You notice that Werdum only ever gets that the time he gets the back take. In all the other scenarios, Volkov was really good about getting his feet to the floor. Now, that won't necessarily always save you, but a really good deep half will have that long. So if someone's doing deep half on you, you're going to have one leg bent and one leg straight. And you don't want to bring them together. You want to have them separated, right? It'll benefit you. You want to have that other straight leg, ankle to, and then foot to the floor. That you don't want to let them use their hook to pick that up. You notice that for the most part, Volkov does a really good job of that. So he sits out past the head, which still leaves you in half guard, but you're no longer in deep half, and then you can turn into him, which you saw at the end there. That's one. Number two, he gets his foot to the floor because Werdum is kind of panicking, and he's not elevating the hook on the long leg. That's number two. And number three, here's the other key to this. If I've got one arm, if I'm doing the deep half, if I'm Fabricio Werdum, if I'm doing the deep half and I've got my leg and I'm controlling the leg here, I got one arm on the outside of your leg. Controlling this arm is super, super critical. And you see Werdum do this. He actually takes his hand and drives it into the chin of Volkov and uses that to turn and then come up and push him over sometimes to success, sometimes not. Here's my point. If you don't do that, if you control this arm, if you're Volkov and you control Werdum's outside arm, the one that's not hooking the leg, you can stop the whole thing. A lot of times when guys go for De La Hiva, they'll wrap the leg, they'll elevate your leg with their own hook, and then they'll take this hand and they'll actually tuck it underneath, right? So that you can't underhook it and get Kimura or armbarred or whatever the case may be. Werdum doesn't really do that. So a couple of times, you're going to see Volkov be able to get around it. Now that's a bit of an overview. That last scramble has almost all of this fit into one. So let's do this. Let's take a look at that last scramble in slow motion, and you'll see some of the things that Volkov was able to do that really saved him and kept him in this fight. So let's take a look at that now. Now watch this. Here we go. I'm going to walk you through this. Werdum shoots. He's going to turn. And he's like, watch, he's turning that way. He's going to pull the knee on him. Notice how, look at the foot of Volkov. It's off the floor there, but it's not being elevated from Werdum. Now, if Volkov, you can see he's got, look, now Volkov's foot's on the floor, and now he's past deep half. You can see he's outside of it. He's still in half guard, but he's actually outside of it. Look at the hands of Volkov. That's what's doing the trick here. He's not letting Fabricio roll. One hand on the shoulder and one hand on the knee. It's preventing him from turning. And now he comes and steps around. You can see the re-roll there of Werdum, right? Watch this. He keeps it posted. Look at the foot of Volkov. Let's see. Now it's back on the ground. He's trying to come back up, but there's no control over the hook. So he slides off of it. Here comes the whizzer. Now another re-roll, right? He's never really firmly controlling it, right? Look at the hook. It's not elevated. See how far the knee up? Look at the foot. It's by the hips of Werdum. It's not out and extended and lifted like it needs to be. And now you see him crunching him together, hooking the leg of Werdum. It keeps him tight. If you have this in a gi, you just grab their gi pants on the outside and you pull them to you, and they can't do a whole lot with it. Now look at the foot of Volkov. It's elevated for a second, but for the most part, you can see it's on the ground and it's not out and extended. He's too high up for Werdum. Werdum can't get a hook. He can't elevate him. He can't turn him. And look at that right arm of Werdum. It's reaching out, but it's not doing anything to protect himself. He's able to use that, switch his hips. Here he is. He's going to come down. Now watch this. He's just going to sit past the head. He's going to drop his hips to the ground. Watch this. Right? Drops his hips to the ground. Now he's at a deep half. He's still in half guard, but then he just steps over and gets back in guard. Just like that. Did you see that? Pushing on the shoulders and the arm. Crunching Werdum into him when he needed to. Hammer fisting to force him to roll. Letting his own foot touch the ground. Or withdrawing it all the way up so that just the foot was past the hips. And Werdum can't control Volkov's leg with his own underhook. Oh, when I say underhook, I mean with his instep hook. Using my feet to lift yours. He doesn't do any of that. He doesn't do any of that because he can't. Because Volkov did such a good job preventing it. It's not like he has the best jiu-jitsu or the most amazing jiu-jitsu, but he had just enough to keep him safe here. And if Werdum can't do that to him, you really have to wonder who could, absent better ground and pound. This was really, really kind of great by Alexander Volkov. I was very heartened by this. I feel like, obviously we've talked about turnover in this division for young guys, and that's all important. But really, to me here, he's a guy who's just sort of known as a striker and a guy who was known to be out-wrestled by Czech Congo. And yes, he got taken down here quite a few times, but to me when you're watching that is somebody who understands grappling positions well beyond stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 even, and has just enough of a sensibilities where he knows he needs to drop his hip. How do I control someone in deep half? What are the things and the situations that I have to maintain? I have to keep my foot on the floor, or I got to keep my foot right up top to the hips, not have my leg well extended out so that someone can use their instep and lift it up, right? That's what he's trying to do here. He never even gets close to it. Alexander Volkov won this fight because we always knew he was a good striker. He has that ridiculous right-hand shovel punch. The real key to this story is Werdum's best asset was no good, not because he wasn't able to score points with it, but because he just couldn't do enough, because Volkov always was able to keep himself in this fight. And last but not least, we take a look at what's coming up in the week ahead, and the answer is nothing. There is no Bellator this weekend. There is no UFC this weekend. The next big one won't be April 6th, the Huerta versus Benson Henderson fight, and of course April 7th will be the big UFC contest. So I don't know what we're going to do next week, but I appreciate you guys tuning in. So thank you so much for watching. shoot me an email, lukethomasnews@gmail.com. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Let me know. I'd always appreciate some feedback. And of course, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, enjoy the fights.